Hey, Judge, thank you. I'm just back. I want you to pretend like I'm in the very back of the courtroom here, and you keep your voice really loud.
Okay.
Now, is it fair to say that you work at a business that sells firearms and ammunition?
Yes,
Okay. And how long have you worked there?
a year and 3 months.
And what's your job title or responsibilities there?
Office manager?
Now, do you also occasionally conduct the sales of firearms and ammunition yourself?
Yes,
And how many firearm sales have you been a part of in your time?
can't say.
Is it more than 10?
Yes,
Okay, is it more than 20?
yes,
Okay, so this is it's just a regular course of business, is that right?
yes,
Now, is there a process when somebody buys it?
yes.
Tell me what that process is.
We have to take their driver's license, make copies. We have to give the customer the 4473 form. They fill it out and I do the next check on them.
Okay, let me stop real quick. What's the 4473?
It's the information of the customer.
Okay,
Just their address, date of birth, every questions on the form they have to answer.
okay. And you said a NICS form?
The next check.
NICS check, what's that?
On the computer, we run it through the ATL or FBI.
And then,
So we're gonna have to assume that we don't know as much as you do.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
So when you say you're doing a mixed check, what specifically are you doing?
Running the form electronically.
Running the form, the 4473?
Yes, ma'am.
is that like a background check?
Yes,
Okay. And then is there a trigger lock statement given as well?
yes.
And what's that?
The trigger lock statement,
Right.
it's stating, it's stating that the gun that is purchased is cut, we're giving the lock to them.
Now, when your store sells a firearm, specifically a handgun, do you also give a ATF youth handgun safety act notice?
Yes,
Is that in the form of a pamphlet?
yes,
May I approach the witness, Judge?
Yes.
This is People's Proposed 79. Ms. Bag, what have I just handed you?
the youth handgun safety guide,
Okay, and is that what is given to every purchaser of a handgun?
yes.
Okay. People move to admit 79.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Be admitted.
Now, I'm going to direct your attention to the screen over here to your right. And this is a photograph, actually it's from your store. It's the same color, same size, same material given on every single time, is that right?
Yes,
Okay, and this is 33 for the record. I believe we have a stipulation.
It's 33.
The photograph is 33, yeah.
Is that correct? You stipulated to that?
Correct, Your Honor.
Now, does the store that you work at have notices posted throughout the store?
yes.
What sort of notices?
The youth handgun safety and the, don't like to buy.
Okay, I'm gonna again direct your attention to the screen here, and just, we have a stipulation. This is 34. And this is a photograph. Is this photograph of the notice posted at your store?
Yes,
And this is the don't lie for the other guy.
yes.
And where is this posted?
Behind the register,
Okay. So if a purchaser were to purchase a firearm, it'd be in their line of sight.
yes,
And you said the youth safety notice not just is given, but it's also posted.
yes,
And this is the exhibits 35, and you do have a stipulation exhibit 35, Your Honor.
So crowd counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
And that's also posted where?
behind the register,
Okay. When a firearm is purchased, you keep a sales receipt.
yes,
This is exhibit 36, and I believe we also have a stipulation of 36.
Counsel?
Correct, Your Honor.
And do you recognize it?
yes, I do.
Okay, and how do you recognize it?
My handwriting,
And this is a sales receipt from the date of November the 26th, 2021 to James Robert Crumbley, his address, and his information he provided, and what was sold to James Robert Crumbley in the day.
a fiscal 6 ounce,
Okay, and that SP2022, what's that?
that is the model,
The model number?
yes,
Okay, and this is a 9mm handgun, am I right?
yes,
Okay. And when you sell a pistol, specifically this particular pistol, do you just hand over the handgun itself, or does it come in some kind of case?
It comes in a case.
Okay, describe the case for me.
It would be a black case, or a gray color case.
Okay,
With the pistol and the extra clips, if the gun has extra clips, the lock,
we say clip to me magazine.
yes.
Okay, so there's the pistol itself, and you said the lock. What kind of lock?
Cable lock.
Cable lock. What is that?
It is a lock that locks the pistol, goes through the trigger.
Okay, and is it your store's policy to turn over a trigger lock or a cable lock with every single handgun purchase?
Yes,
And was one given to James Robert Crumbley on
Yes.
November the 26th?
yes,
And we've said his name. Do you recall making the actual transaction?
I do.
You see that person who identified himself as James Robert Crumbley to you on November the 26th of last year?
Yes,
Can you please point to him, describe something he's wearing today?
gentleman in the orange jumpsuit.
You are really reflect the reputation of defendant James Crumbley.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
So noted.
Okay. Had you seen him in the store before on November 26th?
Prior to November.
Correct, thank you.
Yes,
Okay. On November the 26th, tell me how the purchase happened.
we were kind of busy. I stepped out of my office to help my counter guy. There was a gentleman, between the gentleman, my counter guy was helping, and James Crumbley. I approached the older gentleman first, and he said, go ahead and help James Crumbley. Went over, asked him what I could help him with, and he pointed to the 6-hour pistol, and I said, oh, would you like to see it? And he said, no, I would like to purchase it. I've had my eye on it for a few days. And I said, oh, and which I recognize Mr. Crumbley because he's made multiple purchases from us before. And I said to him, you know the routine. And he said, yeah, and I got his license, made copies, gave him the form, filled it out. Ran the background check on him. His research did not come straight through, so it was taking quite a bit of time. So the store kind of cleared out, and I told Mr. Crumbley, I said, you're in research. And he said, that's fine, that's normal. I can just go home, and you guys can give me a call. And so I left my counter guy the information, and I proceeded back to my office.
Okay. And did he go home or did he stay?
He stayed.
Was he alone or was he with somebody else?
He was with someone,
And was that person an adult or was that person not an adult?
not an adult.
Okay. Have you ever seen that person before?
I have not.
And did you at that point in time know who that person was?
I did not.
Could you describe him, please?
He was approximately 5'7", 5'8". He had dark hair.
Short hair or long
It
hair?
was kind of long,
Okay.
shaggy.
Now, James Crumbley didn't shop around at all. He just picked out that 9mm.
He picked out just the 9mm.
Did he pay with credit card, debit card, or cash?
I believe it was credit card.
And what happened? What happened next?
He paid, my counter guy gave him the item, and they left the store.
I'm going to show you Exhibit 37. Now, you referenced the 4473. Is that also known as the firearms transaction record?
Yes,
Okay. And it has the defendant's, well, it's hard to see on that picture here. It has James Robert Crumbley's information on there.
Mhm.
And it also has notification on here. One of the boxes that he fills out is that he is acknowledging that it is illegal to buy a gun for somebody else. Is that
yes,
right?
yes,
And he acknowledged that as well.
yes,
All right, and that's the effect of the notices posted throughout the store, am I right?
yes.
This is exhibit 37, we have a stipulation to that, Judge. Move to that.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Be admitted.
Now, you had testified that a trigger lock statement is given as well.
Yes,
Okay, this is exhibit 38. We also have a stipulation to this. Is this the trigger lock statement that is provided to a purchaser of a handgun?
yes.
And what does this state?
It just states that the gun comes with the, that we provided, the trigger lock or the case lock for the firearm.
And you have already testified that it is your store policy to provide one of those to every purchaser.
Yes,
And when you provide it, is it encased in anything?
the lock,
Yeah,
it's in the gun case.
okay, but is it itself in a plastic bag?
Yes,
Okay. And you testified earlier about that gun case. I want to go back to that very briefly. You said it's a plastic case.
Are you moving to object this?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, this is
38.
No objection, Your Honor.
Now, the case that the firearm is contained in when it's sold, it's plastic?
yes,
Okay. And is there clasps on it to close it?
yes.
Okay. Is there a locking mechanism?
No,
Okay, so there's no combination lock or a key lock.
no,
And that's what was sold to James Crumbley on November the 26th, 2021.
yes.
Okay, one moment, Your Honor. I'm not the
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
I have a call counsel approach, please.
Yes, Your Honor.
Any cross on behalf of Jennifer Crumbley? Oh,
I'm sorry, Your Honor, can Ms. Lehman go first because she has substantially more, it would make sense.
Thank you, Your Honor. Morning, Beth. Let's start at the beginning. You said that you recognized Mr. Crumbley from prior visits to the store. Is that accurate?
Yes,
In fact, you characterized him as making quote unquote multiple purchases.
yes,
And it's fair to say that he had 2 prior firearms purchases. Is that fair?
yes,
Okay. And they were approximately over a period of 5 months.
unsure.
It wasn't the day before, right?
No,
The week before?
no,
Okay, so it was over some time.
yes,
And he told you that he'd been in the store previously and looked at other handguns, is that fair?
yes,
And he said that he knew which gun he wanted because of his prior visits. Do you recall that conversation?
no,
You do recall, however, that he was very clear that he wanted the one handgun based on his prior visits to the store.
yes,
And he purchased the handgun that he asked for, is that fair?
yes,
And you spoke with law enforcement after Mr. Crumbley purchased the gun, after November 30th of 2020.
law enforcement as,
The ATF, the
Yes.
police, somebody, okay.
yes,
And you recall telling them that you didn't have any reason to believe that Mr. Crumbley was purchasing that firearm for anybody else, is that fair?
yes,
There were no statements made that he was purchasing for somebody else, right?
no,
The individual he was standing with didn't say that's the one I want, right?
no,
He didn't say this is the one you want, right?
correct,
In fact, had those things occurred, you couldn't have sold the firearm, is that fair?
yes,
Now, the prosecutor showed you exhibit 33 and 79. He showed you the actual pamphlet, which is exhibit 79, and then exhibit 33 is a printout. Actually, I'll pull it from the book. It's a copy of the Youth ATF handgun notice, Youth Handgun Safety Act notice.
yes,
And you're familiar with this, correct?
yes,
And you're familiar with firearms laws?
yes,
You kind of have to be for what you do, right?
kind of, yes,
So you know that in this notice, it says that it's unlawful for a minor to possess a handgun overall. Is that fair? But there are exceptions, correct? Can I approach, Your Honor? Go ahead. Yes. We want to look at page 3 of Exhibit 33. There's a heading 18 USC 922 parentheses X and parentheses. Do you see that? Like right in the middle.
Oh, yes, yes.
And if you look at X1, it says it's unlawful for a person to sell, deliver, or otherwise transfer to a person who the transferor knows or has reasonable cause to believe is a juvenile to go through handgun, ammunition. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then you look down at subsection 2, and it says it's unlawful for any person who is a juvenile to knowingly possess a handgun, ammunition, all those things. Is that right?
Yes.
And then you get to subsection 3. And subsection 3 says this subsection does not apply to, and it lists a few areas that it doesn't apply. Is that right?
I'm not following.
Okay, we'll start with A, which is right below 3. It's in that middle section. Can you see where I'm looking? I'll point on my copy.
Okay.
Subsection 3A says a temporary transfer of a handgun or ammunition to a juvenile or to the possession or use of a handgun or ammunition by a juvenile, and then it lists a few conditions under which that temporary transfer or possession may occur. Is that right?
Yes.
And if you go down to, and it's kind of hard to read on the copy, I think, but the next little subsection is subsection I, the lowercase I.
Okay.
And toward the end of that subsection I, it lists target practice or a course of instruction in the safe and lawful use of a handgun. Is that accurate?
Yes.
So under federal law, it is not illegal for a minor to temporarily possess a handgun. Is that fair? Under certain conditions.
Yes.
And parents come in and buy firearms for their children. Is that fair to say?
No.
So a minor cannot register a handgun. Is that fair?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, Mr. Crumbley did not transfer title or possession to that handgun to a minor. Is that
Actually,
fair?
speculation, Judge, she can only testify to the actual transaction on November 26th.
I asked her knowledge.
You testifies to what knowledge is, go ahead.
To your knowledge, Mr. Crumbley did not transfer possession or registration of that handgun to a minor. Is that fair? As far as you're aware.
No.
And based on your reading of the law and our review of it today, it wouldn't be illegal if Mr. Crumbley allowed his son to use a handgun at a shooting range. Is that fair?
In his company.
Correct.
Yes.
Or to handle it while he's at home. Is that fair?
No.
I'm assuming you're also familiar with Michigan laws as they relate to handguns,
Not all. No.
just mostly federal.
Some.
It was gonna be specifically that Michigan laws are similar to federal laws as they relate to temporary possession for, under certain conditions. But you're saying you don't know about that?
No, that's not all.
So when the prosecutor shows you Exhibit 34, Exhibit 33, and Exhibit 35, about not buying a gun for anybody else, not transferring possession to anybody else, not giving handguns to minors. So long as a minor has a handgun or uses a handgun within the conditions prescribed by federal law, it's not illegal. It's
No,
And again, to your knowledge, you're not aware of any time that James Crumbley is or a minor to use his handgun without his supervision.
correct.
To your knowledge, correct? One moment, Your Honor. I had one other question regarding, it might be a few questions regarding this trigger lock statement that the prosecutor showed you. Actually, we're gonna go a little farther. Exhibit 36. I will clean this up. Exhibit 36 is the receipt for purchase, correct?
Yes,
That James Crumbley was purchasing the firearm.
yes,
And then this is the pistol purchase record, correct?
yes,
And this is typically what an individual would take to register their firearm. Is that fair?
yes,
And it has to be done within so many days, right?
correct,
And to your knowledge, that was done. Is that fair?
yes.
And then the trigger lock statement. This is simply a statement that indicates that the trigger lock was provided with the handgun. Is that fair?
Correct,
Okay, and you indicated that it was like a cable lock.
yes,
Okay. So, to your knowledge, Mr. Crumbley used the cable lock. Is that fair?
That's on the form of the question, she cannot possibly testify to that, she can only testify that she gave the trigger lock.
That's fair, Your Honor. I'll change my question. You're not aware that Mr. Crumbley didn't use the cable lock. Is that fair?
Same question, Judge, same
It's the
question.
same.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any questions on behalf of Jennifer Crumbley?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Any redirect?
Just very briefly. This back, as a federally licensed firearms dealer, you follow all the regulations from the ATF and other laws, is that correct?
yes,
So he had, and you can only testify to what actually occurred on November the 26th, 2021, right?
yes,
That's your entire involvement with this case.
yes,
Okay. So had James Crumbley walked in and said, hey, Ethan, is this the 9mm that you want? You wouldn't have sold it, right?
no.
Okay. Nothing.
You may step down. That's probably your next witness.